Have you ever told a lie and thought the lie would bring you more peace than telling the actual truth? Joel is in therapy, and his therapist has called him out for lying. Hello, my name is Dr. Pauline Botchway, a licensed professional counselor, and I am here to break down Joel, a character from the HBO Max series, The Last of Us. If we know anything about Joel, we know that this man has a savior complex and he will do just about anything to protect Ellie, even if it means sabotaging their relationship by masking the truth. But what is the long-term mental health impact of lying?
Swear to me that everything you said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
Increased anxiety and stress. Keeping track of lies is mentally exhausting. The fear of being caught can lead to chronic stress and anxiety. Did y'all see how tired Joel looked at the top of the episode? We should also consider the fact that Joel has experienced a lot of loss from his daughter, his partner, and close friends. The world as he knew it was also lost. Guilt and shame. Even if the lies are rationalized, guilt can build up, especially if the lies hurt others.
You shot and killed my husband. You killed Eugene. And I resent you for it.
So far, Joel seems more lost and alone than ever this season. Guilt and shame can do that to a person. Joel is isolating, which is a natural response for him. Identity confusion. I don't think Joel knows what to do with himself when he is not being a father figure or battling zombies. The scene where he shows up to Ellie's flat and can barely stand to be there and then grabs a guitar and storms off to tune it for her. She didn't ask him to do that, by the way. Breaking of trust in relationships. When lies are exposed, it often damages or destroys relationships. That loss of connection and support can lead to loneliness and depression. When we think of Joel from season 1, when he lived in Texas, up to now, where he is living in Wyoming in a community built by his brother and others, Joel looks like an outsider, a refugee, as his sister-in-law reminded him. It seems the closest relationships Joel has had are with females, and basically, Joel has lost each of them. We can assume that the mother of his biological daughter passed away. Then his daughter passed away. His girlfriend passed away. Then he met Ellie, whom he really tried not to get close to, but eventually built a strong bond with, and now they're growing further and further apart.
Are you okay?
What is wrong with you? I don't need your fucking help.
Cognitive load and burnout. Lying consistently requires mental effort, keeping stories straight and remembering the details. Over time, this cognitive burden can lead to mental fatigue. The scene where Joel sheds some tears while talking to his therapist really highlights how much guilt and shame Joel is carrying. Of course, it doesn't help that his therapist finally told him how she feels about how Joel killed her husband. There's so much to unpack. Risk of pathological lying. In some cases, chronic lying becomes compulsive and is linked to deeper psychiatric conditions such as personality disorders. Lying can become a coping strategy over time, especially when you feel unsafe or when you feel you might lose someone if you told them the truth. It is safe to say that Joel has a deep fear of losing people, and unfortunately, his plans to protect Ellie are pushing her further away from him. As his therapist said, you can't heal something unless you are brave enough to say it out loud. Is Joel brave enough to tell Ellie the truth? What do you think will happen once Ellie finds out the truth? What if I told you that fantasizing about revenge probably feels better than the actual revenge? I must confess, the way the first episode went down, I thought Joel would have died from the multiple heartbreaks he has experienced. I even thought his guilt was going to eat him alive slowly. What I never saw coming was Joel dying at the hands of a broken-hearted stranger. Not in my bingo card. I'm here to break down the domino effect of seeking revenge by talking about some key characters from the HBO Max series, The Last of Us. This episode started like a bad dream that never ended. It was one thing after the next, after the next. For example, just when we thought Joel's lies were safe with his therapist, Joel let his guard down and got himself killed. The truth about revenge is that it doesn't end and nobody wins. It cycles from one person to the next like the domino effect. Revenge, just like generational trauma, can be passed down and inherited.
Don't go in there.
Stop it!
I'm telling you, go back.
No!
For example, we heard Ellie yelling at Abby that she would kill her. Abby, without knowing, has passed down her vengeance to Ellie. But guess what? Joel has a brother and he is loved by many in his community. It is safe to assume that his brother will also seek revenge, and likely so will others in Jackson Hole. For generations to come, Abby's revenge will have a lasting impact. But what is the impact of revenge on the person seeking it? Emotional toll. Revenge might feel satisfying at first, but it often leads to prolonged anger, bitterness, and even guilt. This was noticeable at the end when Abby and her troops were leaving. She did not look like she felt good about her decision to kill Joel. Even during the act, you could sense her hesitancy. I mean, I get it. The person you've been hunting to kill by chance also saved your life from a mob of zombies?
And one doctor. You remember that one? An unarmed doctor.
Mental distraction. Focusing on revenge can consume much energy and attention, taking away from personal growth or happiness. We don't know much about Abby, but what we do know is that she was consumed by the nightmares of finding her dead father and the stories of how he died. So much so, she convinced some friends to join her mission to avenge her dad. They blindly went on a witch hunt for Joel. Social consequences. Getting revenge can damage relationships, ruin reputations, and sometimes lead to retaliation or escalation. This was very obvious. Abby's crew seemed somewhat afraid of her and walks on eggshells around her. I don't blame them. They have probably seen how unhinged Abby can get. Overall, revenge often perpetuates pain instead of resolving it. I am going to guess that Abby's mental health is even worse than before. Joel did not deserve to die, and neither did Abby's dad. How far is Ellie going to go to avenge Joel? What happens after you lose someone you had a complicated relationship with? Sometimes it is complex PTSD or prolonged grief. In Ellie's case, it's both, using the 5 stages of grief. Let's get to know Ellie a little bit more, but first, we should know that the 5 stages of grief comes from the Kubler-Ross model, developed by psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in 1969. The stages are: 1. Denial. This is a defense mechanism. The mind struggles to accept the reality of the loss. Thoughts like, this can't be happening, or there must be a mistake, are common. Now, before Joel died, Ellie was in denial that she would ever lose him. If she did, maybe she would have tried to let go of her grudge against him. Stage 2, anger. As the masking effects of denial wear off, pain reemerges. Anger might be directed at yourself, others, or even the situation. It's a way to try to find someone or something to blame. I think that Ellie is likely more angry at herself than she is at Abby for killing Joel. Ellie probably blames herself. Ellie tends to mask with distractions such as lying, sarcasm, and even trying to come off as charming or saying what she thinks you want to hear, as she did at the meeting.
Normally don't write things down because I normally don't think before I talk, which has gotten me in trouble before. A lot. And it's cost me in ways that sometimes couldn't be undone. But I can't afford that right now because I know what I'm asking is a lot. I'm asking us to risk more people and resources and at the worst possible time. And I want everyone to know, it's not because I want revenge. It's not. It's not about revenge.
Stage 3, bargaining. Here, people often dwell on what if or if only statements. There might be attempts to negotiate with fate, a higher power, in an effort to avoid the reality of the loss. If I do X, maybe Y will happen instead. I think that Ellie, as impulsive as we know her to be, feels that avenging Joel's death may make her feel better. She may even believe that people won't focus so much on her if she gives them something else to focus on. It hasn't really set in yet that Joel is dead. Stage 4, depression. This is deep sadness as the reality sinks in. It's often characterized by withdrawal, regret, fear, and intense sorrow. It's a natural step toward confronting the loss. Ellie, after leaving the hospital, went straight to Joel's house, and walking into his closet is one of the moments that brought on deep sadness. Ellie really cried for a moment there. And then again, when Ellie landed in Seattle and saw all those dead people, especially the little girl, it started to sink in that Joel's gone. Mind you, Ellie has seen more zombies die than actual humans. Stage 5. Acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean you're okay with what happened. It means you've begun to live with the reality of the loss. There may still be sadness, but there's more ability to move forward. I think the fact that Ellie going to Joel's grave, bringing him coffee beans, is her way of accepting what has happened. Her decision to see his grave on the way to Seattle was a form of acceptance and in some ways getting Joel's blessing. It is important to know that people don't always move through these stages in a neat order. Some skip stages, revisit stages, or experience them in a different sequence. What stage of grief do you think Ellie is in? Ever wondered how Ellie is still alive? If you think about it, Ellie is very impulsive, and that type of behavior has gotten her in a few jams. Really, one can even argue that she is incapable of keeping herself alive. Curious? Stick around as I tell you how I think Dina has kept Ellie alive. There are obvious reasons as to how Ellie has stayed alive, such as Joel being her protector and her being immune to the fungus. However, there is someone else who has kept her alive all this time, but has been somewhat under the radar until episode 4 of season 2.
If you paint a sign big enough to be seen from miles away, that means you want people to know that you're there, which also means more likely than not, you're prepared. And
They're on a hill, so they'll see us coming.
To talk about how people tend to take on roles when they are in survival mode. So, as I was saying, Dina has kept Ellie alive while also being in survival mode. Survival mode refers to a psychological and physiological state where a person is operating primarily out of a need to survive rather than thrive. Season 2 for Ellie has been very different. She has met other people her age and has even allowed herself to fall in love again after her tragic loss in season 1. In survival mode, the brain and body's response to prolonged or intense stress, trauma, or danger activates the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses to keep the person safe. Also, if you haven't noticed, Dina often keeps Ellie in check just like she did when Ellie wanted to go storming off to seek revenge without making plans. Dina also pulled Ellie back in the scene where Dina counted how many infected people they may be dealing with in the tunnel. Some key characteristics of survival mode are hypervigilance, constantly on edge, scanning for threats. Keep in mind, when they made it to Seattle, Dina constantly reminded Ellie that they needed to wait before they go after Abby and her crew. Overreacting or shutting down. Disproportionate emotional responses or complete withdrawal. Emotional numbness or detachment. Suppressing feelings to cope. This is not necessarily the case in this season for Ellie, but I think that being around someone like Dina in a community that seems to have some type of order and structure has allowed Ellie to settle in a bit more and express herself.
you've gotten pretty good.
Let's talk about how Dina has kept Ellie alive while being in survival mode. Poor concentration or memory. The brain prioritizes immediate survival over long-term thinking. Like I mentioned, Ellie is quite impulsive and stubborn. This was something that was challenging for Joel. However, Dina tends to call her out, and Dina tends to play a role of grounding Ellie and reminding her that, look, things are not okay. Read the room. Exhaustion. Chronic stress depletes energy and motivation. Difficulties with connection. Struggles with trust, communication, or intimacy. Let's face it, Ellie has a multitude of issues, and abandonment is one of them, as anyone would with the life experiences she's had. However, Dina has shown us a softer side of Ellie. Landing in Seattle full of hate and ready to kill, but stepping into a town with rainbow flags and hearts showed us how deeply Dina and Ellie love each other. Overall, Dina has served as an anchor for Ellie, which shifted Ellie from being in survival mode to protective and loving mode. I think that in many ways, Dina and Ellie have kept each other alive. Will Ellie and Dina's relationship stand the test of time? How would you live your life if you knew the world was ending? It seems even with zombies lurking around, everyone who is alive is seeking some sort of revenge. Ellie woke up and chose violence. We're breaking down Ellie's anger through the lens of trauma, PTSD, and the psychology of revenge. So far, this season of The Last of Us, we have watched as Ellie's grief mutates into obsession, and a once hopeful has become consumed by vengeance. But what's really behind Ellie's rage? Anger is also a survival response.
And if I hadn't killed him, if he had gotten away, I promise you, I would have hunted him down forever. Forever.
Meaning that in some cases, it can keep you alive and motivated. Just as we have seen Ellie and Dina and Abby and her goons go on a quest to seek vengeance. In trauma, anger can become a shield, especially when the loss is senseless and unresolved. Ellie's trauma history. Childhood trauma. Losing her mom, growing up in a post-pandemic world, survivor's guilt from The Last of Us Part 1. Joel's murder. Sudden, brutal, and triggering unresolved father-daughter attachment wounds. Her PTSD flashbacks, especially of Joel, fuel her obsession. Ellie never had space to grieve Joel. His death wasn't just a loss, it was a violation. Her protector was taken. And in trauma psychology, that kind of rupture, sudden violent unprocessed, can ignite a desperate need to control the chaos through action. This is evident as we watch Ellie chase down Nora in a building full of wolves. Obsessive and tunnel-visioned Ellie did not realize where she was chasing Nora until she was faced with the reality of the fungus and spores. Also, let's not forget that Nora was the one who restrained Ellie while Joel was being beaten to death. That's where the anger begins. Ellie's rage as a coping mechanism. Rage is Ellie's way of coping with powerlessness. She uses violence to regain agency, but it only deepens her trauma. We notice Ellie's rage building as she walks through the room full of cordyceps and spores. Seeing people being consumed alive may have reminded Ellie about how Joel stopped the doctor from creating a cure. I think a representation of Ellie's rage was indicated by her turning on the red lights just before she walked to Nora. You can see in Ellie's eyes that at this point, she has dissociated and is having an out-of-body experience. This is emotional numbing, a classic trauma response. She is literally seeing red. Ellie isn't just chasing Abby, she's chasing relief. But the tragedy is, with every person she kills, her pain doesn't shrink, it multiplies. That's the paradox of revenge. It promises closure, but delivers only emptiness. Overall, I think it is safe to say that Ellie's anger was never the problem. It was the pain underneath. Ellie is living with untreated trauma, unaddressed grief, and emotional wounds left to fester. If this breakdown helped you see Ellie in a deeper way, hit like and subscribe. What do you think? Is revenge ever justified? Or does it always come at a cost? Drop your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned to our next insight into episode 6. Joel has told at least 2 very big lies to Ellie's face. But what if lying was a symptom of something much deeper? When Joel lied to Ellie about the fireflies, we all felt it. Some of us were angry, story, some of us understood, but most of us asked the same question: why? Breaking down and exploring the psychological roots of Joel's lying, framed around trauma, survival, and attachment. And we're going to ask a tough but important question: is Joel a compulsive liar?
I'll tell Gail what she needs to know and nothing more. It's the right thing to do.
We know Joel to withhold the truth repeatedly, to protect, to manipulate, to survive. From his past, Fireflies, Eugene, and more. Even Ellie called him selfish for lying. Understanding compulsive lying. What drives someone to give false information, even when the stakes are high? Sources say that compulsive lying is a chronic behavior of telling lies for varied reasons, not always malicious. In this episode, we were able to see how far back Joel has been bending the truth. He has been protecting his little brother Tommy from their abusive father. Protective lying may be noticeable in people who have experienced some form of trauma. It is a coping mechanism to prevent perceived threats or pain. Joel told lies to protect Tommy. Then fast forward to age 50, he lied to Eugene right before he killed him. And then he tried to protect Gail by lying to her about how her husband Eugene died. Because of Joel's traumatic childhood due to the abuse he experienced from his dad, he developed an anxious attachment style. This means that Joel has a fear of abandonment. He lost his daughter, and therefore he did not want to lose Ellie. And he's hypervigilant. To avoid conflict, he is a people pleaser. Just as we saw as Ellie tried to move out in the middle of the night, and Joel basically begged her to stay for 2 more days. Overall, to cope with his anxious attachment style, Joel tends to lie to preserve relationships or to prevent abandonment.
He begged to see you. He had time. Joe promised to take him to you. He promised us both. And then Joel shot him in the head. You swore.
Why is Joel a compulsive liar? Trauma, survival, and control. For Joel, control is survival, and sometimes truth feels like surrender. We saw how Joel has taken control by fighting for Tommy and stepping up to their abusive father. It is no surprise that Joel has trauma and has maintained some sense of control and safety by telling little and big lies. Joel's PTSD and hypervigilance have created a belief that there is a high cost of honesty in a brutal world. Joel believes truth will destroy what he's built. So, is Joel a compulsive liar or a man doing what he thought was right? My opinion is that Joel was a compulsive liar and he believed he was right. Just as he told Ellie he will do it again on the porch scene. I don't blame Joel for his ways of survival. Lying kept him and Tommy alive from the person who was meant to protect them. It's no wonder Joel had such a savior complex. It has literally worked all his life until it didn't. I mean, after all, lies will catch up to us. Joel's lying isn't just a plot twist. It's a symptom. It reveals how trauma reshapes truth, relationships, and morality. What do you think? Was Joel justified in lying? Drop your thoughts in the comments. In a world torn apart by infection, violence, and grief, there's one thing that still keeps people going: each other. But what happens when the very communities that promise safety begin to erode your sense of self? In episode 7 of The Last of Us season 2, we see how the need to belong can either heal or break you. In Ellie's case, it has broken her. Today, we're breaking down and exploring the psychology of the long-term impact of community and how communities tend to shape key characters of The Last of Us. At the heart of every human being is a need for connection. Psychologist Abraham Maslow placed love and belonging right at the center of his hierarchy of needs, just after safety and before self-esteem. In The Last of Us, communities like Jackson or The Wolf offer more than food and shelter. They offer meaning, identity, a place to be someone in a world where everything feels lost. However, Ellie stated that she has lost her community when Joel died. Community versus individual trauma. Although communities can provide a sense of safety, it isn't always healing. For example, like Ellie haunted by the past, community can become a mirror, reflecting everything she's lost. Even when you're surrounded by people, you still feel completely alone. Ellie has felt abandoned her whole life, and because of rage and revenge, she abandoned Jesse and Tommy to hunt down Abby. This choice proved to be fatal for Jesse. Unlike Ellie, who is impulsive and selfish, Jesse and Joel are willing to be violent, but not at any cost. And for Abby, loyalty for her group, the Wolf, comes at the cost of her mental well-being. She's trapped in a cycle of violence that's justified by the group's ideology. Personally, it tears her apart. When belonging comes with conditions, one of the most psychological damaging parts of community can be conditional acceptance. You belong until you question the rules. From what we have seen, the Seraphites seem the most loyal to their community. We have watched them being tortured to death while members of Wolf have broken down to provide information when being tortured. We saw this when Mel was caught in the crossfire as she tried to provide Ellie with the truth about Abby's whereabouts, which cost her her life and the life of her unborn child. When belonging comes with conditions, the more you silence your own values to fit in, the more detached you become from your identity. In psychology, this is called cognitive dissonance, the stress of living in contradiction with your own beliefs. And in communities like these, that stress can lead to depression, anxiety, and emotional numbness. I think that there's irony in this episode, especially Ellie trying to save the young Seraphite boy while Jesse is telling her to stand back, but later nearly being killed by the Seraphites, but only to be unintentionally saved by the Wolf, who were attacking the Seraphites community. The big question is, why doesn't Ellie turn around when she had plenty of chances to go back to her community? That is because Ellie has lost her sense of self and her sense of community. Now she has killed innocent people, such as an unborn child. For Joel, a community that no longer exists for her. The healing and harm of shared grief. Grief has a strange way of pulling people together and pushing them apart. In episode 7, we see moments of deep connection between characters such as Jesse and Ellie, who have suffered unthinkable losses. Sometimes that grief helps them see each other. Other times, it fuels cycles of revenge and division, such as when Dina pulled away when Ellie told her the truth about why Joel was killed. Shared trauma can build powerful bonds, but when the trauma goes unprocessed, it turns into something else. Collective anger, scapegoating, or even radicalization, such as the war between the Wolves and the Seraphites. So what makes a healthy community? A healthy community allows space for differences. It listens, it adapts, it lets people grieve, grow, and make mistakes. In The Last of Us, those kinds of communities are rare, but not impossible. As we watch these characters struggle with loyalty, loss, and identity, we're reminded of our own relationships, our own groups, and we have to ask, does the community I belong to help me become more of who I am or less? Thanks for watching. If this episode got you thinking about your own mental health or the impact of your community, drop a comment below. And if you're feeling isolated, remember, there is help and there is hope.